Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Dave. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. A pleasure to join you, and yeah, really looking forward to chatting agents and generative engines and everything in between.
Yeah, Dave, I'm so excited for this. I mean, just the little sneak peek we had on the pre-call, I'm already like the wheels are turning. But before we dive into the subject, let's get to know you, your background and work history.
Sure. In going back to 2004, I started a SEO company with my wife, and that for a big chunk of time, over a decade. Then went in-house. I had a job opportunity from Weights and Biases, an AI tool manufacturer. They sort of built the tools that like OpenAI trades on, right? That sort of is what they do, and a bunch of other companies, of course. And had a chance to work there. It's funny because I was having to like leave a partnership with my wife, and she was like, "You love it, you love it." It was after like 3 months. She's like, "You love what you're doing. Just go do that." Because I was on contract at first, and anyway, they offered me a full-time position. So yeah, for the last 4 years, I've been working in house for an AI company and watching that transition from traditional machine learning over to generative engines. Helping with the growth of them with OpenAI and the Google and those sorts. And now having a chance to sort of watch the birth of, or sort of like the new era that's crossing over that we enter into now, which has been sort of building over the last couple of years. But I think we're sort of at a tipping point. I think in a new era of how we as consumers and of the internet will be engaging with it. So it's a really, really exciting time.
Okay, I love it. So Dave, you're presenting actually on this similar subject at a show in the near future. Can you tell the audience just a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll be keynoting SMX Advanced in Boston. So that's going to be really interesting. And yeah, I'm sort of covering, or sort of it's keynote. So you don't really get into like the tutorial sort of side of things, which is sort of my like passion is actually like teaching. But I'm basically going to be introducing the audience to the concepts of not just what agents are as we can use them, and including a bit of like, okay, here's actually what agents are, because a lot of people don't even understand that. Okay, here's how we can use them. Here's how we can market into them, because of course, not just understanding here's how we can use them, but here's how Google and OpenAI, like here's how the places we're marketing to are using them. And then as well, how is that going to change users? Like, how is that going to change how we engage with the internet at all? And then marketers are going to have to follow that trend as the consumer pattern starts to switch. I think we're a good few year sort of transition point, but we've got a big run coming up at us of change.
I love it. That's amazing. So anyone that's attending or thinking about attending a really cool event, this sounds amazing. Dave, what we're going to talk about today, how agents and generative engines are reshaping the role of SEO. So how is AI, agents, all that kind of stuff, how is that changing SEO in general? Like what's the main element here? Is it just the little snippets at the top of the search results? But like what all is changing?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different things you could sort of answer that with, right? Like there's a number of different angles we can go at. So first one that I'll talk about, sort of the elephant in the room that we all sort of don't really know how to talk about with our bosses, and our bosses don't really know whether to believe us on that. Attribution's a freaking disaster now. So there's that part. I've referred to it as sort of like we're all now running up a sand dune, right? Like we can look at our search console and we can see what our traffic is, and we're trying to compare that to last year. But the entire time as we're building out new content and we're improving our rankings, as we're doing that, we have all of this traffic bleeding off on the side into these AI overviews, or people who have just moved over to ChatGPT for certain query types. Or, I mean, like I work, the sort of content that I'm producing is meant to get in front of machine learning engineers. Well, if we look at like Stack Overflow lost like half their content when ChatGPT started to come out. So were we, right? Like, or like, I don't know that it's exactly 50%, but like we'll be losing that too, because they're just sitting in Cursor. They've got Claude 3.7 open, asking it what to do next with code, not coming to us. So now I need to make sure I'm in there and that we're the solution that they're providing. But then when they click to sign up, now it's direct. Attribution's a disaster. It's not just me. It's a disaster for everybody. So there's that part. That's the sort of like elephant in the room, something that I think all marketers need to like really look at and like understand how to explain it. I'm lucky because the people that I work for are machine learning engineers who understand what's going on because they built it. So it's easier for me, and they can sort of get the nuances and go, okay, fine, you're like branding now. And I'm like, yeah, okay, like we got this. I think we're good. But I don't think that's the case for everybody who might be like, well, now all of our like red Nike sneakers sell from direct. It's like, no, they don't. So I would still feel sorry. So there's that side, but that I think is sort of the sort of secondary. That's the pleasant problem to have because it means you have traffic and sales, which means you've done your job on the first part. That's, I think, where we get into the sort of nuts and bolts, and maybe what you were leaning at in the question is, how is it actually changing how we market, right? How is it changing? How do we optimize for generative engines versus optimizing for traditional engines? One thing I can say out of the gate is suddenly I care about Bing. For like 15, 20 years, I didn't care about Bing. Now, all of a sudden, it powers a lot of ChatGPT. A lot of users use ChatGPT to do their research. Suddenly I care about Bing again. And Bing is not completely different than Google, but it's different than Google, right? Like the content structures, I tend to find, just as like a little takeaway, sort of shorter, more focused pieces tend to do better on Bing. Long sort of pillar pieces tend to do better on Google. I suspect it's because Google is better with their own machine learning algorithms and can chunk long pages better and go, send the users there. They've got all the data that they want, but chances are they're not going to go there, right? So we'll pull out the piece we need. We'll like extrapolate what that means. We understand their authority because they built a big piece of content there. And we know if we send the user there, there's a good chance their question's answered because like, I don't know, this is 5,000 words, right? Like somewhere in there is good. And they do have like quality, sort of checks that you do on that. So there is that sort of duality. And then like what formats, it was a really, really interesting paper done from the Allen Institute. This is going like a long time ago. It was like 6 months ago they updated it or something. It was like not
AI,
a long
that's a
time
long
ago,
time
but
ago.
like it was a long time. But it was done by the Allen Institute and the University of Toronto, sort of breaking down, and they were using ChatGPT 3.5, but I've tested a lot of the techniques they were using. They do seem to more or less hold true. And they were just looking at like what works on generative engines in their studies when they like really break down and they do 10,000 different like queries with page types and stuff like that and sort of format pages. And there are just some simple little things that do seem to hold. And it's, if you just think of the fact that, or I try to remember, and we'll get into the specific formats, but not to monologue here because I know there's like other questions. But as far as specific formats go, things like having quotes works. Having statistics in tables work. So don't take a screenshot and drop it on the page of this table with all sorts of useful information. Drop it in as a table, make it, sort of structured data so that the engines, the crawlers actually understand what they're reading there. Citations at the bottom do work. I've been using them quite a bit. And now I get to write sort of more authoritative, but like, here's all the resources that we use. Now they can reference like what these resources are. I'm not saying it like we used to. I never did, but there was the like principle in like old school SEO, like link to like Wikipedia, and that's going to help your authority score. No, that's not. But here's not that sort of thing. It's the idea of like sort of if you're citing, like if you look at how they structure things, they cite. If you look at how you would structure things, you too logically would cite your sources if you're creating robust, well-researched articles. Right. So similarly, I don't know if they're actually understanding what those links are or if they're just going, okay, we know these kinds of things here. We see that on the page, and that means that it's probably authoritative, right? Like which it could be as well. So there's that side of things, the specific techniques in generative engines, formats, speeds. The shortest time deep research tends to pick up my content faster. So I can surface content. The fastest I've done it so far is 22 hours, right? Getting a piece in, and then it'll surface in deep research. I actually found that out by accident while I was doing competitor research. And I was like, there's my article over there referencing a competitor of ours. Fantastic. Like in surfacing in there. So like, that's sort of like a perfect scenario, but that took about 22 hours. And so, but that wasn't in their traditional, like most people aren't in deep research. Most people don't even have access to deep research, right? In ChatGPT. So I don't really count that as the like sort of gold bar, but and then we head into the sort of like agentic world as well, where okay, now we've got tools, and the I would view deep research as actually a good example, right? Of like you go in, you run, you put in a query, it comes back and goes, can you answer a few more questions? Because it's sort of like used a reasoning model to sort of go like, how would I answer this? Then it comes back, goes, okay, here's my other. Then it actually starts running queries and like scanning and doing a bunch of supplemental research on it. So, I mean, it'd be a pretty simple, quote unquote, agentic model, like a highly, highly complex agentic model, just not as many moving parts as many of them might have. But But then it is crawling the web. It is testing whether code would work, and sometimes in the background. It is scanning different things. It is understanding images on pages. It is doing all of this stuff and then surfacing a well-researched, sometimes it's well researched. It may make the wrong conclusions, but it's well researched, sort of conclusion. So there we have like a pretty basic agentic, quote unquote, again, basic agentic, sort of system that all of us sort of have access to. You could even view like just clicking that little search button on most of them. Okay, now it's using like RAG, right? Like it's going out and it's sort of like accessing search results. RAG is retrieval augmented generation for those who may not know. And that's basically just enabling a large language model with access to a larger database. Oftentimes, and it's shorthand in my world anyway, for like search results, right? Like you're able to access the web and search results and pull that back in. Is used for a lot more than that, but I'll just sort of like leave it at that and my sort of like monologue. I know I probably answered way more than you needed me to there.
No, that was amazing. I love it. The passion's there, the knowledge is there, and you're coming from a place of expertise. What was fascinating when we were talking beforehand, you're shifting your perspective on who we're writing our content for. So are we writing for people anymore? Like what's your perspective on how it almost sounds like the whole internet's going to shift how we engage with businesses? What's kind of your take here?
Yeah, I think if we look forward, I can't even, it's one of those, like, I want to say 5 or 6 years, but I wouldn't be overly shocked if it was like really kicking in 2 to 3 years where we have just a fundamental change where people will be the slower part. Adoption by human beings will be the slower part, but when it kicks in, it'll be incredibly fast. And what that is yes, right now, when I'm writing content, when I'm optimizing content, I always keep in mind the goal here is to get a human being to land on that page, engage with that content, and then go, hey, I would like to purchase this product or service, right? Like, where that's I'm speaking sort of globally. I have a specific one I'm trying to get people to like, sort of purchase or at least use, but for everybody, that's what we're all sort of like thinking of, right? Is like, okay, I need, to make sure that my product, somebody comes to my site, they buy my product or service. As we're starting to see agents, and I spend basically my entire life surrounded by people talking about agents. And so I know it is evolving. It's going to be sort of like ChatGPT was. There was a lot of work with transformers. There was a lot of work on natural language processing and on foundation models. Like there was a GPT-2 that nobody heard about outside of machine learning, right? Like all of these things were happening. And then all of a sudden, the one that people could use happened. And all of a sudden it took off, right? Like we're to the point where OpenAI is like, we're just burning money right now because we have too much demand and we can't, we haven't come up with a business plan yet. Like they'll get there. Don't get me wrong. They'll
The whole
make
thank
money
you
at the
debate
end.
there was also fascinating.
But I see a world once agents have that moment, right? Like once agents have hit that, like, okay, now they're where you will sit down or I will sit down and I will just build an agentic system. I, not meaning probably you or I, but probably meaning Google. Or we can look at the agent to agent protocol, like the new A2A protocol that allows agents to sort of communicate their capabilities and features and formats, to other agents. And sort of then agents can have this communication on what they do. Google launched it. Azure just came out supporting it. So, okay, now you've got like the two, and I'm sure AWS will come out in the not too distant future going, all right, fine. Begrudgingly, we're not going to come up with our own protocol. We'll just support this one protocol. So now all of them can communicate together. And I see a world in the not too distant future, especially if you're Google, going, well, we own eyeballs anyway. You have a Google Home or you have an Android device, or you can have these devices in your home and version of it probably connected to similar systems. Why is it that I would sit there, and I'll go into like something I'm actually looking for. The company I work for is now sending me an Apple. The first time I've had to deal with working on an Apple device. But for my personal stuff, my gaming, all of that, I will still keep my Windows device. It's a new one. It's got all the features that I want on it. So that's going to be my personal. So now I need a KVM switch, right? Keyboard, video, mouse, right? Like it's sort of like, so I can just switch back and forth, use my two monitors and all that sort of stuff. So I want a KVM. This is a utility thing. This is not like Dave's planning a trip to Bali. Also something that I'm doing where I want to look at all the pictures. I want to look at the hotels. I'm not just going to trust some system to do it. If no other reason than to me, it adds extra value. It's like buying scratching wins. It's better than a straight lottery because I get to spend like 5-10 minutes actually having fun with this thing, right? Like it adds to the value of the thing. Look at a KVM switch. I do not care. Get me one that has the ports I need that'll do the thing I want. I do not care. So while I'm spending hours doing this research, and this is there is a reason I'm doing all this research, at some point we'll have tipped over. And it'll be the sort of like ChatGPT moment of agents where I will simply go and I will tell, and I'm not going to say it right now, I'm just going to put the thing on mute, and I will simply say, okay, Google, find me a KVM switch that supports MacBook Pro, that supports Windows, that supports 2 monitors, blah, 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 and it's under $300. Go. And then 2 days later, it will just show up at my door. Like, I don't care anymore. And so that's the world that I'm sort of thinking of. Or it may be that while I'm planning my trip over to Boston to do my keynote, I might not really care. I just want like, okay, find me a hotel that's within a 10-minute walk, right? That's like, rated at like, let's say 8 stars on TripAdvisor or like 8 on TripAdvisor or higher or whatever. And that has like a sauna. So at the end of the day, I can go chill out in the sauna. Whatever the things that I would normally look for. But other than that, I mean, I've had those trips where I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to be there for 2 days. Like, I don't actually care. I want it to be nice. I want it to be clean. Just book that thing for me. And we're not there yet, right? Like, we're not at the point where I would even trust that agentic system with my credit card, right? Or most agentic systems, but Google already has my credit card, right? Azure already has my credit card. I mean, you might not think Azure does, but Microsoft has a lot of our credit cards, right? So like, they kind of have it in one way or another. Azure directly does in my case because I play with their system. But, this is that next generation I see. Now, what does that mean for us? It means the technical SEOs rise, in my sort of opinion. It's like now it becomes about formatting my offerings to make sure they're in there. It's the people that have like, I don't know, if I ran a vacation rental company or I ran a hotel, I'd pretty quickly actually be over on Microsoft, as I was saying, all of a sudden, Bing suddenly matters. I'd be over there going, Google's a pain in the butt for hotel ads. I just happen to know that. Like, you need to go in through like partners. You can't just do it yourself. But on Microsoft, you can. And Microsoft serves ChatGPT. Now, ChatGPT doesn't have hotels in there yet, but they will because they now have products in there, right? So, and they're not from Bing yet, like in Bing ads, but they will at some point. They've got to monetize. We know they've got to monetize all those pesky free users who are gobbling up tokens. So we just need to get it. Like I would be, if I ran a travel, for example, I would definitely be in like Bing right now going, okay, I'm just readying myself. The competition is super low. It's going to be super cheap. And then as soon as they start funneling those things into ChatGPT with people who are looking up, like, what should I do while I'm in Bali? All of a sudden I get hit with all these hotel ads in there, right? Because OpenAI needs to monetize it for users. Anyway, that's just sort of going into like, it's actually not optimizing content. It's optimizing over there, but making sure you have like, you can argue whether schema is good or not. Like for LLMs, I hedge my bets. It's an I, I'm dotting, and a T, I'm crossing, right? Like, it is structured data. LLMs just love structured data. Something else that I'm going to just note, and this is just a total aside, feel free to cut this one if you want, but something that I found for folks, especially if you're using pre-rendering systems, we do use a pre-rendering system, that I had somehow hit the snooze button on. So we have a pre-rendering system, prerender.io, served us well. So I'll give them a little free mention there. And that's because our site's JavaScript. So Google would just see nothing, basically. Our site, they would just see our template. So for those who don't know what pre-rendering is, you probably don't need to. It didn't need that explanation. Anyway, what I had only just recently realized is I'd cleared Googlebot. I even when LLM started launching, went in and started adding like Google extensions, stuff like I did all that part. And I didn't let in CCbot. So I didn't say CCbot should get the pre-rendered version. Why that matters, and I'm just going to mention for everybody who's like controlling bots and saying allow this and don't allow that. CCbot is common crawl, is for the common crawl. Common crawl is an index used by, I think it's every major foundation model builder. Like, I think it may just be every foundation model builder trains on common crawl. And you can actually go to index.commoncrawl.org and see which pages of your site are actually indexed by it. But this is what the LLMs are training on. And I'm like, how did I not think of that? Like, how is that not thing number one that I did? Anyway, it did occur to me, and I thought, I'm probably not the only person to sort of like miss that one and not think about it. It was actually when I saw that I could see the index, I'm like, wait, where's their bot? What's their bot? So anyway, just a little takeaway for people who might have JavaScript sites or who otherwise control their bots. You do want to make sure CCbot is getting access to what you want.
Love it. So, Dave, I have one final question because we are running out of time. When should you write for the technical generative AI, generative engines, and when should you write for humans? I know we talked a lot about how a lot of traffic's going to be going through these agents. Where do you see value in writing for humans, and when should I kind of make the call of which kind of content to write?
Yeah, I think it gets into a sort of difficult sort of area, but because everybody's site structure is different, right? Like, so it's typical SEO. It depends, but there is some hard and fast rules that I would sort of follow. Your marketing site, like I refer to it like anything that's built to sell your good or service, that's users. I don't even really like, I'll kind of pay attention to it as an SEO, but I generally not like marketing teams will go, no, you can't do that. And I'll go, fine, I'm going to have to do my real work. So off I go into a different area. So making sure you have those sections of your sites that are built for SEO. Something that's very special with LLMs though, that we didn't ever really have with traditional SEO is you can train LLMs anywhere. It doesn't have to be on your site. Create a Medium blog and write your like stuff. I mean, it would still need to be good for users because the stronger the Medium blog, the better that it's going to do, right? The stronger, or any similar spot. Like I've done some testings on Medium, and again, you don't put a crap there because otherwise it's not going to get attention. But if you build good stuff, you can build it more for the sort of LLMs and LLM oriented content. I don't even bother planting links in those ones, right? It's not about links. It's just about here's some additional place to reinforce the message that I'm trying to get. Because I've just spent 2 days doing research on this article. Let's get 2 or 3 of them and like put them in a couple different locations, just put a different author on them or something like that. So that's sort of something. But in our case, yeah, like I would think of our blog or docs in my case, like if you're technical, that's sort of a training ground for LLMs, right? And like creating something called cookbooks, which is just short form code with like little explainers, right? Like, so thinking about your content in that way. One little tip that I would suggest is right after your heading, though, either start it with one sentence and a series of bullets that completely answers the question that your heading implies, or start it with a 260 to 320 character paragraph that completely answers the question, that then continues to explore, that just really like LLMs, as smart as these systems are fundamentally pretty dumb, right? Like they really need to be spoon fed. So you go, here's my complete answer, gives them something to really anchor on, and then they can sort of flow from there. Most of the time in the citation, they'll just use the thing that completely answers the question.
Okay, this is amazing. I am almost certain I'm going to have to ask you to do another episode because I'm excited for this. But Dave, we have run out of time. Mm-hmm. I am guessing there are going to be people that would love to connect with you online. How and where can they find you?
You can go either on LinkedIn or Twitter. The handle is the same. It's Online Inference. So online and inference, just don't put a space between them. And yeah, that's my handle in both locations. Happy to connect with anybody.
Love it. And we will link to Dave's information in the show notes below for anyone looking to connect with him. Dave, thank you. This has been amazing. I really do appreciate the insights today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.